So pop up your chat box. For number 2, I actually have a poll for you guys, but for number 1, what kinds of foods are these? So when you eat protein, what are you eating? What do you think? Eggs are good. Chicken is good. Eggs have protein. Chicken, meat, beans, those all have protein. Meat, good. Besides meat, beans also have protein, and so do nuts. Yep, peanut butter, fish, all kinds of nuts. They all have protein. Good. And then what about carbohydrates? If you're eating carbs, what are you eating? Bread, rice, oats, more bread, potatoes, yep. Sugary food, candy, yeah, candy is actually technically a carbohydrate, good. Rice cakes, good. Tortillas, pasta, those are other carbohydrates too. And then what about fats? This one's always tricky. Avocados have fat in them, yes. Anything that makes oil, that oil that comes out is the fat. So like avocado oil would be the fat. Peanut oil would be the fat. Fast food's too general because you eat a hamburger, you got carbs in the bun, you got protein in the meat. Milk has some fat in it, but milk is not considered a fat. Cheese is considered a protein. Chocolate has sugar, is considered a carbohydrate. Certain meat parts, Shayla, yes, like bacon's a good one because you have the actual bacon, which is protein, and then the grease that comes off when you cook it, that grease is fat. So fats are mostly stuff that you cook in. Grease, lard, butter, oil, those are your fats. All right, prefixes. Prefixes, I have a poll. Let's see, who knows their prefixes? Yeah, mono, di, tri, and poly. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes with a poll to pick out your prefixes. $19 of you so far, 20, good. What are our prefixes? You guys about another 30 seconds. All right. And share. So you guys did good. You guys did well. Mono means 1. Very good. Di means 2. Tri means 3. If you have a tricycle, you have 3 wheels. And then poly means many. If you are polygamous, it means you have many wives. So you did well. All right. And then organic. When you hear the word organic, what do you think it means? No added ingredients, natural, no GMOs. Good. Natural, So those are all the grocery store definitions of organic. Organic actually just means made of carbon. You are made of carbon, so you are an organic being. So when you go to the grocery store, yeah, that's what it means, no pesticides, it means natural, but in science class, it just means you're made of carbon. So, all right, our essential question, what are living things made of? Same essential question as we've been going over for the past few weeks. We started at elements. We built our way up to simple compounds like water. And then today we're going to go over more complex compounds that we are made of. Organic molecules are the foundation of life. Organic means made of carbon. That is our science definition for it. It's the actual definition for it too, but grocery stores have taken it and made it their own, just like people have taken the word theory and made it their own. So organic just means made of carbon. Many carbon-based molecules are made of small subunits bonded together. Monomers are the individual subunits, and then polymers are the large chains that are made of many monomers. So yes, I would like you to draw that picture. You don't have to make them hexagons, you can just make them circles and stuck together with little chains. But one individual unit is called a monomer. There's your prefix mono for one. And then you add a bunch of them together and bond a bunch of them together. You get many, which is poly. So the whole thing is called a polymer. These are just science vocab words that you need to know. They're going to be on your attendance quizzes this week. This is the only picture you have to draw, or the only picture I want you to draw anyways, for these notes. There's some other pictures of the big molecules that if you want to draw them, you can. You'll have some pictures on your quizzes this week. There's 4 major organic compounds found in living things. We went over 3 of them in the bell work, the stuff that we eat. They're called macromolecules. They're all made up of small repeating subunits, or small repeating units, called monomers. They're all made up of different units, which makes them different, but they're all made up of repeating units. Yes, Viviana, you only have to put it in your notes if it says draw. The prefix macro is opposite of micro. Micro means small, so macro is large. So these are large molecules. And because there's 4 major organic compounds, some of your attendance quizzes this week are only going to be worth 4 points. They're going to be matching. It's going to say, here's the compound, now you match the monomer, or here's the compound, match the function. But there's only 4 of them. So if it says that one of our attendance quizzes is only worth 4 points, that's okay. Carbohydrates is our first one. The name carbohydrates literally means made of carbon and water, which means the molecules, the elements that make it up are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The C, the H, and the O. The first 3 of our schnapps. Its main function is to store energy for later use. And there's a bunch of examples: rice, pasta, bread, potatoes, tortillas.
I have a question. Yeah. Why do people say like that carbs are like bad? Or like, have you heard on like TV when they're like, oh, I'm trying to cut carbs? Why do they say that or relate that if it's for energy?
Because if you eat too many carbs and you don't burn it off, then the carbs do turn into fat.
Oh,
So that's why you always want to have it balanced. You can eat carbs, but make sure you don't eat too many. And then what are we doing all summer long because it's hot outside and we can't go anywhere? We're sitting inside and watching Netflix, so we're not actually burning that energy. That's why they say that.
all right, then thank you.
You're welcome. Types of carbohydrates. There's simple ones and there's complex ones. So the subunit or monomer of a carbohydrate is called a monosaccharide, which looks like a really long word. And if you break it down, mono just means one. And saccharide means sugar. And in science, we don't say the CH sound for some reason in any of our words. We say it like a K. So that's monosaccharide. And examples of single sugars are glucose and fructose. And there's two pictures right there. It's kind of a ring-like structure, and you just have one ring with a bunch of branches of different elements coming off of it. There's more types of carbohydrates. They're not all just single one sugar units. You can put them together. And a chain of monosaccharides, when you put them together, you can either end up with disaccharides if you just put two, or polysaccharides. If you put a lot together, then you have many. So some disaccharides. Sucrose is table sugar. It's probably what everybody has in their house. I know I have it in my house. And on the right, you see a picture. Sucrose is made of a glucose and a fructose put together. So you have mono plus mono equals di. Lactose is the sugar you'll find in milk. That's another disaccharide made of two sugars put together. Then you have polysaccharides, meaning many. Starch, bread, pasta, potatoes. Those are polysaccharides made of repeating units. Cellulose is the sugar that you'll find in plants. So you should see a pattern in most sugars. The official science name of the sugar ends in OSE. Glucose, fructose, sucrose, lactose, cellulose. Starch is the exception. There's always an exception. But if you ever see a word that ends in OSE, it's probably a sugar. Lipids are our second macromolecule. These include fats, oils, and cholesterol. The monomer of lipids is fatty acids, and I put this in quotes because it's not technically a monomer. It's not just fatty acid chain after fatty acid chain after fatty acid chain. There's some other stuff you can see on the bottom, like a glycerol that needs to be attached to it. Where the starch and the cellulose are just long chains of sugars, of monosaccharides. And lipids have several different functions. It's a source of long-term energy. Carbohydrates was for short-term energy. Our body stores this differently. It makes up our cell membranes. Our entire body is made up of different kinds of cells. And they each have their own membrane covering it. Part of that membrane is made of lipids. Talk more about that in the next chapter. It also makes up our hormones. Hormones are chemicals in our bloodstream that send signals to different places in our body. You guys are going to learn about hormones when you do your discussion this week. Proteins, they can also be called polypeptides. Peptide is a certain type of bond. So polypeptides means there's a lot of many different peptide bonds going on in a protein molecule. And these large molecules are made of monomers called amino acids. On the right, the blue and red and white molecule, that's one amino acid. You put together a chain of these, you'll get a protein. There's functional proteins like enzymes, participate in chemical processes in our body like digestion. The next section is all about enzymes. And then there's structural proteins, the stuff you eat, like meat, beans, nuts. They form the structures of our body like muscles. And the last one is called nucleic acids. You all should have seen this before. You all should know what that picture is. Nucleic acids carry instructions to build proteins. It's the genetic material that gets passed from parents to offspring. Its monomers are called nucleotides. And examples are DNA and RNA. Chapter 8 in our book is all about DNA and RNA. So we're just introducing it here. We'll go over DNA in more detail when we get to chapter 8. This is our only macromolecule that we're made of that can't also be classified into a food source.